phone rang loudly in the busy office of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Lisa Barnes looked up from her computer screen and grabbed the phone quickly. She was the main producer of the show and always stayed busy planning new episodes. "Hello, this is Lisa," she said into the phone.
"Lisa, you won't believe what just happened," said the voice on the other end.
It was Mike Davis, one of the best booking agents in Hollywood. He worked hard to get famous people to come on talk shows. "What's going on, Mike?" Lisa asked. She could hear excitement in his voice. "I just got off the phone with someone very special," Mike said. "Are you sitting down?" Lisa laughed. "Just tell me who it is, Mike." "Melania Trump wants to come on Jimmy's show," Mike said. "The former First Lady herself." Lisa almost dropped her phone. In all her years working on the show, she had never expected this call. Melania Trump rarely did interviews. She was known for staying private and quiet. "Are you serious?" Lisa asked. "Dead serious," Mike replied. "Her people called me this morning. They want to talk about her new charity work and some fashion projects she's working on." Lisa looked around the office. Other writers and producers were working at their desks. None of them knew about this big news yet. "When does she want to do this?" Lisa asked. "Next week," Mike said. "Tuesday night taping." "That's really soon," Lisa said. "Are you sure this is real?" "I talked to her publicist Nancy Davis for 20 minutes, Mike explained. "They want to keep it simple. Just talk about charity work, fashion, and maybe some light questions about her life now." Lisa wrote notes on a piece of paper. This would be huge for the show. Getting Melania Trump as a guest would bring lots of viewers. It would also bring lots of attention from news reporters. "What topics are off limits?" Lisa asked. "Politics, mostly," Mike said. "They don't want Jimmy asking about the election or her husband's campaign. Just keep it light and friendly." "That makes sense," Lisa said. "Jimmy can do that. He's good with all kinds of guests." After hanging up, Lisa sat quietly for a moment. This was big news. She needed to tell Jimmy right away. She also needed to start planning the interview questions. She walked across the office to find Danny Rodriguez. He was one of the best writers on the show. Danny was sitting at his desk, eating lunch and reading jokes that other writers had submitted. "Danny, I need you to drop everything," Lisa said. "What's wrong?" Danny asked. He could see the serious look on Lisa's face. "We just booked Melania Trump for next Tuesday," Lisa said quietly. Danny's sandwich fell out of his hands. "You're joking." "I'm not joking," Lisa said. "We need to start writing questions right now." "This is crazy," Danny said. "How did this happen?" Lisa explained the phone call from Mike Davis. Danny listened carefully and took notes. "So no political questions?" Danny asked. "Right," Lisa said. "Keep it safe. Charity work, fashion, what?" "She's doing now." "I can work with that," Danny said. "Give me a few hours and I'll have some good questions ready." Lisa walked to Jimmy's office. The door was closed, which meant he was probably taking a nap. Jimmy often slept in the afternoon before showtime. Lisa knocked softly. "Come in," Jimmy called. Lisa opened the door. Jimmy was lying on his couch, with his eyes closed. "Sorry to wake you up," Lisa said, "but I have big news." Jimmy sat up quickly. "What kind of news?" "We just booked Melania Trump for Tuesday night," Lisa said. Jimmy stared at her for a long moment. Then he started laughing. "That's a good joke, Lisa," he said. "You really had me going." "I'm not joking, Jimmy," Lisa said. "Mike Davis just called. It's real." Jimmy stopped laughing. He could tell Lisa was serious. "Melania Trump wants to come on our show," he asked. "Yes," Lisa said. "To talk about charity work and fashion." Jimmy stood up and walked around his office. He was thinking hard. "This could be really good for the show," he said. "Or really bad." "Why would it be bad?" Lisa asked. "You know how I am with political stuff," Jimmy said. "I make jokes. I can't help myself." "You'll have to control yourself this time," Lisa said. Her people were very clear. No politics. "I can do that," Jimmy said. "I think I can do that." Later that day, Lisa called a meeting with the main staff. She gathered all the writers, producers, and directors in the conference room. "I have some exciting news," she told the group. "We just booked a very special guest for Tuesday night. Amy Patterson, the head writer, looked interested. "Who is it, Melania Trump?" Lisa said. The room went completely quiet, and everyone started talking at once. "How did we get her?" asked Chris Murphy, the director. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" asked Karen White, who worked for the network. "What are we going to talk about?" asked Paul Young, Jimmy's assistant. Lisa held up her hands for quiet. "Let me explain everything." She told them about the phone call from Mike Davis. She explained the rules, about keeping the interview light and avoiding politics. "This is a huge opportunity," Lisa said. "We just need to be professional." Karen White looked worried. "Jimmy has made a lot of jokes about her husband over the years." "Jimmy can handle this," Lisa said. "He's a professional." That evening, Danny Rodriguez stayed late to work on interview questions. He sat at his computer and typed carefully. He wanted the questions to be interesting but safe. He wrote questions about Melania's modeling career. He wrote questions about her charity work with children. Wrote questions about fashion and style. Danny avoided anything that might lead to political topics. He didn't write questions about the White House or elections or campaigns. By midnight, I had 20 good questions ready. He printed them out and left them on Lisa's desk. The next morning, Lisa found Danny's questions. She read through them carefully. They were perfect, interesting, but not controversial. Lisa made copies of the questions and gave them to Jimmy. She also sent copies to Mike Davis so Melania's team could review them. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. The interview was planned for Tuesday night. The questions were ready. Jimmy seemed confident he could handle it, but Lisa felt nervous. She had worked in television for 15 years. She knew that big interviews like this could go wrong quickly. She decided to have extra security at the studio on Tuesday night. She also planned to have more producers backstage than usual. Lisa wanted everything to be perfect. This interview could be the biggest moment in the show's history. She was not going to let anything go wrong. Tuesday morning came quickly. Lisa Barnes arrived at the studio early, feeling nervous energy in her stomach. Today was the day they would film the interview with Melania Trump. She had barely slept the night before. The studio felt different. Somehow, even the security guards seemed more alert than usual.
Out.
Lisa walked through the empty hallways, checking everything twice. She wanted this day to be perfect. At 10 in the morning, Lisa's phone rang. It was Nancy Davis, Melania's publicist. "Need to meet before the interview," Nancy said. Her voice sounded serious and cold. "Of course," Lisa replied. "What time works for you?" "We'll be there at noon," Nancy said. "We need to go over the questions again." Lisa felt a small worry in her chest. They had already approved the questions last week. Why did they need to? Review them again? "Is there a problem with the questions?" Lisa asked. "We'll discuss it when we get there," Nancy said and hung up. Lisa immediately called Jimmy. He was still at home getting ready. "Jimmy, Melania's people want to meet early," Lisa said.
What?
"They want to go over the questions again." "Shh. That doesn't sound good," Jimmy said. "Do you think they want to change something?" "I don't know," Lisa said, "but we should be prepared for anything." At noon, a black car pulled up to the studio entrance. Nancy Davis stepped out first. She was a tall woman with short blonde hair and a serious expression. She wore an expensive black suit and carried a large briefcase. Behind her came Melania Trump. She looked elegant in a white dress and dark sunglasses. She walked slowly and didn't smile at the photographers who had. Gathered outside, Lisa met them at the entrance with Steve Johnson, another producer from the show. "Welcome to our studio," Lisa said with a big smile. "We're so excited to have you." Here, Nancy Davis did not smile back. "We need to talk privately," she said. They walked to a small conference room near Jimmy's office. Melania sat down quietly while Nancy opened her briefcase and pulled out several papers. "We've reviewed your questions," Nancy said. "Some of them are not acceptable." Lisa looked at Steve, who seemed surprised. "Which questions are the problem?" Lisa asked. Nancy pointed to the list. "This question about her time in the White House. This one about her husband's presidency. And this one about her life now." Lisa read the questions Nancy was pointing to. They seemed very mild and safe. "Those questions don't mention politics," Lisa said. They're just about her experiences. Any question about the White House is political, Nancy said firmly. Any question about her husband is political. But people will expect us to ask about her time as First Lady, Steve said. That's a normal part of her life story. Find other things to ask about, Nancy said. Fashion, charity work, her childhood, nothing else? Lisa felt frustrated. The questions Nancy wanted to remove were some of the most interesting ones. Let me call Jimmy, Lisa said. We should be part of this conversation. Jimmy arrived. 15 minutes later, he looked relaxed and friendly, but Lisa could tell he was also feeling nervous. Hello, Mrs. Trump, Jimmy said politely. Thank you for coming on our show. Melania nodded but didn't say much. Nancy did most of the talking. Having issues with some of the interview questions, Nancy explained to Jimmy. Jimmy looked at the list of questions. These seem pretty harmless to me, he said. We need to be very careful, Nancy said. Mrs. Trump is here to talk about positive things. Her charity work, her fashion interests. Not politics. I understand that, Jimmy said. But people will. Wonder why we didn't ask about her most famous experiences. That's not our problem, Nancy said coldly. The meeting continued for another hour. Nancy wanted to remove more and more questions. Lisa and Jimmy tried to negotiate, but Nancy would not give in. Finally, Jimmy stood up. Look, we want this interview to work, he said. But we also need to make good television. Our audience expects certain things. Your audience will get what we give them, Nancy said. After Nancy and Melania left for lunch, Lisa and Jimmy sat in his office feeling worried. This is not going well, Lisa said. She's being way too controlling, Jimmy replied. If we can't ask interesting questions, what's the point? Maybe it will be better once the cameras start rolling, Lisa suggested. At 3 o'clock, Melania returned for hair and makeup. Helen Clark, the show's main makeup artist, was excited to work with such a famous person. I've been looking forward to this all week, Helen told Melania as she sat in the makeup chair. Melania smiled for the first time that day. Thank you, she said quietly. As Helen worked on Melania's makeup, she tried to make conversation. You have such beautiful skin, Helen said. Do you have any special beauty secrets? I try to eat healthy food and get enough sleep, Melania replied. Must be hard to maintain privacy in your position, Helen said. Melania's expression changed. She became serious again. Yes, it's very difficult. She said. Helen noticed the change in mood and decided to focus on her work instead of talking. Meanwhile, Paul Young was setting up Jimmy's dressing room. As Jimmy's assistant, Paul knew him very well. He could tell. Jimmy was more nervous than usual. Everything okay, boss? Paul asked. I don't know, Jimmy said. Something feels off about this whole thing. What do you mean? Paul asked. Her publicist is being really difficult, Jimmy explained. She doesn't want us to ask about anything interesting. Maybe once the interview starts, things will loosen up, Paul suggested. Maybe, Jimmy said, but he didn't sound convinced. At 4 o'clock, Rick Martinez, the head of security, called Lisa to his office. We need to talk, Rick said when Lisa arrived.
Oh, what's wrong?
Lisa asked. I've been watching the interactions between your people and her people, Rick said. There's a lot of tension. We had some disagreements about the questions, Lisa admitted. It's more than that, Rick said. I think we should have extra security tonight, just in case. In case of what? Lisa asked. In case this interview doesn't go the way everyone expects, Rick said. Lisa agreed to bring in 2 additional security guards for the evening show. At 5 o'clock, the studio audience began arriving. Jake Thompson, the warm-up comedian, greeted them with his usual energy and jokes. The audience had no idea about the tensions backstage. We have a very special guest tonight, Jake told the crowd. I can't tell you who it is yet, but you're going to be excited. Regular audience members like Mary Foster and her friend Joe Adams were curious about the mystery guest. I wonder who it could be, Mary whispered to Joe. It must be someone really famous if they're keeping it secret, Joe replied. As 6 o'clock approached, Lisa walked through the studio one more time. Everything looked perfect. The cameras were ready. The lights were bright. The audience was excited, but Lisa still felt worried. The meeting with Nancy Davis had not gone well. Jimmy seemed uncomfortable. Even the security chief was concerned. took a deep breath and tried to stay positive. In 30 minutes, they would start filming. She hoped everything would work out fine. But deep down, she had a feeling that this interview might not go the way anyone expected. At 6:30, the studio lights came on bright and hot. The audience sat quietly in their seats, waiting to see who the mystery guest would be. Jimmy Kimmel walked onto the stage with his usual smile and energy. "Good evening, everyone," Jimmy said to the crowd. "We have a very special guest tonight. Someone who rarely does interviews, but agreed to come talk with us." The audience clapped and looked excited. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Please welcome former First Lady Melania Trump," Jimmy announced. The audience gasped with surprise. Some people started clapping loudly. Others sat with their mouths open, not believing what they had heard. Melania walked onto the stage wearing a beautiful blue dress. She smiled and waved at the audience, but Lisa could see that her smile looked forced. She sat down in the guest chair next to Jimmy's desk. "Thank you for being here," Jimmy said warmly. "This is really exciting for us." "Thank you for having me," Melania replied. Her voice was quiet and careful. Carol Evans, the stage manager, watched. From the side of the stage, she held her clipboard tightly and kept checking her watch. Everything seemed normal so far. "So tell us what you've been up to lately," Jimmy asked. This was one of the safe questions they had agreed on. "I've been working on my charity projects," Melania said. "Helping children is very important to me." "That's wonderful," Jimmy said. "Can you tell us more about that work?" For the next 10 minutes, the interview went exactly as planned. Melania talked about helping children. She talked about her interest in fashion. Jimmy asked gentle questions and made harmless jokes. In the control room, Chris Murphy, the director, felt relieved. Maybe this would be easier than everyone had worried about. Luis Garcia, one of the camera operators, kept his camera focused on both Jimmy and Melania. Or into his camera. He could see that Melania seemed relaxed now. The studio audience was enjoying the interview. Mary Foster whispered to her friend Joe Adams, "She seems really nice." "Yeah, this is going better than I expected," Joe whispered back. But then Jimmy made a mistake. He forgot about the rules Nancy Davis had set up. "You know, people are really curious about your time in the White House," Jimmy said. "What was that experience like for you?" Melania's expression changed immediately. The smile disappeared from her face. She sat up straighter in her chair. "I prefer not to discuss that time," she said coldly. Jimmy realized his mistake right away. But instead of moving to a different topic, he tried to make it better. "I don't mean anything political," he said quickly. "Just mean, what was it like living in such a famous house?" "Everything about the White House is political," Melania said. Her voice was getting harder. From the side of the stage, Carol Evans could see that something was going wrong. She looked toward the control room, wondering if they should take a commercial break. In the control room, Chris Murphy was getting nervous. "This doesn't look good," he said to his assistant. Jimmy tried to change the subject. "Let's talk about fashion," he said. "You always look so elegant in your official photos." "Those photos were taken during a political time," Melania said. "I thought we agreed not to discuss politics." The audience started to feel uncomfortable. Bob Taylor, a retired teacher in the front row, could sense the tension building. The woman next to him, Nurse Susan Green, shifted in her seat nervously. Jimmy was starting to sweat under the hot studio lights. He wasn't sure how to fix this situation. "I'm sorry if I upset you," Jimmy said. "That wasn't my intention." "Your show makes fun of my family all the time," Melania said. "And now you pretend to be friendly?" Jimmy looked surprised. "I do make jokes, but that's my job. I make jokes about everyone." "You make mean jokes," Melania said. "Not funny jokes, mean jokes." The studio audience was completely quiet now. They could feel the anger growing between Jimmy and his guest. Lisa Barnes watched from backstage, feeling sick to her stomach. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. She wanted to run onto the stage and stop the interview. "I try to keep my jokes light," Jimmy said. "I don't mean to be mean." "You called my husband names," Melania said. "Made fun of my accent. You showed unflattering pictures of me. That's just comedy," Jimmy said weakly. Kate Wilson, the security supervisor, moved closer to the stage. She could see that the situation was getting worse. It's not comedy when it hurts people, Melania said. Her voice was getting louder. It's just being cruel. Jimmy tried one more time to save the interview. Look, I understand you're upset, but people expect us to talk about current events? Current events or personal attacks? Melania asked. There's a difference between political commentary and personal attacks, Jimmy said. Not on your show, Melania replied sharply. The audience was completely silent now. Some people looked shocked. Others looked embarrassed to be there. Jimmy was getting frustrated. He tried to be polite, but Melania kept attacking him. I've been doing this show for many years, Jimmy said. I think I know the difference between commentary and attacks. Do you? Melania asked. Because from where I sit, you just attack people you don't like. That's not true, Jimmy said. His voice was getting louder too. It is true, Melania said. You hide behind comedy, but you're really just being mean. In the control room, Chris Murphy was panicking. Should we cut to commercial? He asked Lisa through his headset. Not yet, Lisa said. Maybe they can work this out. But things were not getting better. They were getting much worse. I think you're being unfair, Jimmy said. Comedy has always made fun of politicians. There's a difference between making fun and being cruel, Melania said. You crossed that line many times. I disagree, Jimmy said. Of course you disagree, Melania said. You don't care who you hurt as long as people laugh. The studio audience was getting very uncomfortable. Some people wanted to leave, but they didn't want to make noise during the filming. Jimmy was running out of patience. Look, if you don't like comedy shows, maybe you shouldn't have come on one. Maybe I shouldn't have, Melania said coldly. Carol Evans decided it was time to signal for a commercial break. She held up her hands and pointed to the control room. But before Chris Murphy could cut away, Jimmy made another mistake. I think you're taking this too personally, he said to Melania. Too personally? Melania repeated. Her eyes flashed with anger. You made jokes about my child. How is that not personal? Jimmy looked confused. I don't make jokes about children. You showed pictures of my son and made comments, Melania said. A child should be off limits. I don't remember doing that, Jimmy said. Of course you don't remember, Melania said. It wasn't important to you, but it was important to me. The interview was completely falling apart now. Everyone in the studio could feel it. Jimmy tried one last time to fix things. If I ever said anything inappropriate about your family, I'd apologize, if Melania said. If you're not even sure what you said. I say a lot of things on this show, Jimmy said defensively. Exactly, Melania said. You say things without thinking about how they affect real people. The tension in the studio was now so thick that everyone could feel it. This was no longer an interview. It was becoming a fight. The studio felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Jimmy Kimmel sat behind his desk, sweat starting to show on his forehead. Melania Trump sat across from him, her back straight and her eyes cold with anger. The audience of 300 people sat in complete silence. They had come expecting laughs and entertainment. Instead, they were watching what felt like a real fight between two famous people. Jimmy tried to think of something to say that would calm things down, but his mind was racing, and he was starting to feel defensive about his comedy. Look, Mrs. Bowes. Trump, Jimmy said. I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Did we? Melania asked. Or is this exactly what you wanted? To make me look bad on television? That's not what I wanted at all, Jimmy said. I invited you here because I thought it would be interesting for our viewers. Interesting, Melania repeated. You mean you thought it would be fun to embarrass me? In the control room, Chris Murphy was frantically trying to decide what to do. Lisa Barnes stood behind him, watching the monitors with horror. We need to cut to commercial, Chris said. Wait, Lisa said. Jimmy can turn this around. But Jimmy was not turning anything around. He was making things worse. I don't try to embarrass my guests, Jimmy said. But I also don't let people come on my show and attack me. Attack you, Melania said, her voice rising. You have attacked my family for years. It's on television, in front of millions of people. That's different, Jimmy said. That's political comedy. It's not different to me, Melania said. It's not different to my son when his classmates see those jokes. The audience was getting more uncomfortable by the minute. Mary Foster grabbed her friend Joe Adams's arm. "This is really bad," she whispered. Bob Taylor, the retired teacher, had been too many television tapings. He had never seen anything like this. The woman next to him, Susan Green, looked like she wanted to hide under her seat. Jimmy made a decision that would make everything much worse. Instead of apologizing or changing the subject, he decided to defend his right to make jokes. "Look, I'm a comedian," Jimmy said. "Making jokes about public figures is what I do. It's what all late-night hosts do. Their hosts don't make it so personal," Melania said. "I disagree with that," Jimmy said. "We all make the same kinds of jokes." "No," Melania said firmly. "Other hosts make jokes about policies and actions. You make jokes about appearance and family." Jimmy felt his temper starting to rise. He'd been trying to be polite, but Melania kept criticizing him. "I think you're remembering things wrong," Jimmy said. "That was the wrong thing to say." Melania's eyes flashed with real anger. "I'm remembering things wrong?" she said. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm not calling you anything," Jimmy said quickly. "I'm just saying maybe you misunderstood some of my jokes." "I understood them perfectly," Melania said. "So did everyone else who saw them." Carol Evans, the stage manager, was getting desperate. She kept signaling to the control room to cut to commercial, but Lisa Barnes kept telling them to wait. Luis Garcia, the camera operator, had been filming television for 15 years. He had never seen an interview go this wrong. His hands were shaking as he held the camera steady. Kate Wilson, the security supervisor, moved even closer to the stage. She could see that both Jimmy and Melania were getting very angry. She was ready to step in if needed. Jimmy decided to try a different approach. Instead of arguing about his jokes, he would try to make a joke right now. Maybe that would lighten the mood. "You know what?" Jimmy said with a forced smile. "Maybe we should just agree to disagree. After all, you're used to dealing with tough crowds." It was meant to be a light reference to political life, but Melania took it as another insult. "Tough crowds," she said. "You mean the American people?" "No, I mean politics in general," Jimmy said, realizing his joke had failed. "You just proved my point," Melania said. "You can't even have a conversation without making jokes at other people's expense." "That wasn't a joke at your expense," Jimmy said. "That was just ... conversation." "Was it?" Melania asked, because it sounded like another way to make me look bad. The audience was now clearly uncomfortable. Some people were looking toward the exits. Others were checking their phones, probably texting friends about what they were witnessing. Jimmy was running out of patience. He had tried to be nice, but nothing was working. "Okay, let me be direct," Jimmy said. "If you don't like the way I do my show, why did you agree to come on it?" "Because your people said it would be different," Melania said. "They said you wanted to have a real conversation." "This is a real conversation," Jimmy said. "No," Melania said. "This is you trying to make me look foolish so your audience will laugh." "My audience isn't laughing," Jimmy pointed out, and he was right. The audience was dead silent. They looked scared and confused. "That's because they can see what you're doing," Melania said. "Even they know this is wrong." Jimmy looked out at his audience. Their faces showed shock and discomfort. This was not the fun show they had expected. "I think you're being paranoid," Jimmy said. "It was another mistake." "Paranoid," Melania said, her voice getting louder. "You think I'm paranoid?" "I think you're seeing attacks where there aren't any," Jimmy said. "That was the breaking point." Melania stood up from her chair. The whole studio gasped. "I'm seeing attacks because there are attacks," she said, standing tall and looking down at Jimmy. "You have been attacking my family for years?" Jimmy stayed seated, but he was clearly shaken. He had never had a guest stand up during an interview. "Please sit down," Jimmy said. "Let's try to work this out." "Work what out?" Melania said. "You just called me paranoid on television. I didn't mean it that way," Jimmy said. "How did you mean it?" Melania demanded. Chris Murphy in the control room was panicking. "We have to cut away now," he said to Lisa. "Not yet," Lisa said. "Maybe she'll sit back down." But Melania was not sitting back down. She was just getting started. "Want to know what's paranoid?" Melania said to Jimmy. Paranoid is thinking you can invite someone on your show just to humiliate them. That's not what I'm doing, Jimmy said. Then what are you doing? Melania asked. Because from where I'm standing, you're doing exactly what you always do. Jokes at other people's expense. Jimmy made one more attempt to save the interview. Look, why don't we start over? We can talk about something else. Like what? Melania said. Topic won't you turn into a joke? Jimmy couldn't answer that question. His silence made everything worse. That's what I thought, Melania said. You can't even promise to have a normal conversation. The studio was so quiet that people could hear the air conditioning running. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Jimmy finally stood up from behind his desk. I think maybe we should take a break, he said. I think maybe I should leave, Melania said. The audience gasped again. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. You don't have to leave, Jimmy said. We can work this out. No, Melania said. Firmly, we can't, because you don't want to work it out. You want to win. And with that, she started walking toward the edge of the stage. Melania Trump walked toward the edge of the stage with slow, determined steps. Her high heels clicked loudly on the studio floor. The sound echoed through the completely silent studio. Jimmy Kimmel stood behind his desk, watching in shock. In all his years of hosting late-night television, nothing like this had ever happened. He didn't know what to do or say. Mrs. Trump, please, Jimmy called out. Don't leave like this. Melania had stopped walking and turned around to face him. Her face was cold and angry. Why shouldn't I leave? She asked. You clearly don't respect me or my family. That's not true, Jimmy said desperately. I do respect you. No, you don't, Melania said. If you respected me, you wouldn't have tried to trick me into talking about politics. I wasn't trying to trick you, Jimmy said. I just asked normal interview questions. Normal, Melania said. Nothing about this has been normal. As the studio audience sat frozen in their seats, Mary Foster felt like she was watching a car accident happen in slow motion. Her friend Joe Adams had his mouth hanging open in shock. Bob Taylor, a retired teacher, had never seen anything like this on television. Even the news shows weren't this dramatic. Susan Green, the nurse next to him, was gripping her purse tightly. In the control room, Chris Murphy was having a complete breakdown. We need to cut to commercial right now, he said to Lisa Barnes. Wait, Lisa said. Maybe Jimmy can convince her to stay. But Jimmy was not convincing anyone of anything. He was making one final mistake that would end everything. Look, maybe you're just not used to this kind of show, Jimmy said. Maybe political comedy isn't for you. It was the worst thing he could have said. Melania's eyes filled with fury. Not for me, she repeated. You think I can't handle comedy? I didn't mean it like that, Jimmy said quickly. She did, Melania said. You think I'm too sensitive. You think I can't take a joke. It's not what I said, Jimmy protested. It's what you meant, Melania said. It's just like all your jokes about my family. You hide behind comedy when you're really just being cruel. Carol Evans, the stage manager, finally decided she had to do something. She ran onto the stage. Let's take a quick break, Carol said loudly. We'll be right back. But Melania wasn't finished. She had more to say. You want to know what's really funny? Melania said to Jimmy. You think you're so clever with your jokes? But you're just a bully with a microphone? The audience gasped. Someone in the back row actually said, "Oh my God," out loud. Jimmy's face turned red. He was embarrassed and angry. I am not a bully, he said. Yes, you are, Melania said. Make jokes about people who can't fight back. That's what bullies do. Kate Wilson, the security supervisor, stepped onto the stage. She had decided things had gone too far. Ma'am, maybe we should move this conversation backstage, Kate said politely. There's nothing more to discuss, Melania said. She reached up and removed the small microphone that was clipped to her dress. She handed it to Carol Evans. I'm done with this interview, Melania announced, and I'm done with this show. Jimmy made one last desperate attempt. Please don't do this, he said. We can start over. You can talk about whatever you want. It's too late for that, Melania said. You've shown who you really are. Who am I? Jimmy asked, sounding defeated. You're someone who invites people onto your show just to make them look bad, Melania said. You're someone who thinks hurting people is funny. Nancy Davis, Melania's publicist, suddenly appeared at the edge of the stage. She had been watching from backstage, and she was furious. "We're leaving," Nancy announced loudly. "This interview's over." "Ma'am, please," Lisa Barnes said, running onto the stage. "Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," Nancy said. "Your host has been completely unprofessional." "I tried to be professional," Jimmy said weakly. "You tried to embarrass my client," Nancy shot back. "That's not professional." The studio audience was watching this unfold like it was a movie. They couldn't believe they were seeing this happen in real life. Luis Garcia, the camera operator, kept filming everything. He knew this was television history happening right in front of him. Melania walked to the edge of the stage where Nancy was waiting. Before leaving, she turned back to face Jimmy one more time. "You know what the saddest part is?" Melania said. "I actually thought you might be different. I thought you might want to have a real conversation." "I did want that," Jimmy said. "No, you didn't," Melania said. "You wanted to get laughs. You wanted to make jokes. You didn't care about anything else." "That's not fair," Jimmy said. "Life isn't fair," Melania said. "But that doesn't mean we have to make it worse for each other." She walked off the stage. Nancy Davis followed her, talking angrily on her phone. Jimmy stood alone on the stage, looking lost and confused. The audience sat in complete silence, not knowing what to do. Carol Evans ran to the middle of the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break," she announced. "Please stay in your seats." But many people in the audience were already getting up to leave. They had seen enough. In the control room, Chris Murphy finally cut to commercial. But instead of normal commercials, they just showed a message saying, "We'll be right back." Lisa Barnes ran backstage to try to catch Melania before she left the building, but when she got to the parking area, the black car was already driving away. Rick Martinez, the security chief, found Lisa in the parking lot. "Well, that was something," he said. "That was a disaster," Lisa replied. Back in the studio, Jimmy sat in his chair, looking stunned. Paul Young, his assistant, came over to check on him. "You okay, boss?" Paul asked. "I don't know," Jimmy said. "Really don't know." Amy Patterson, the head writer, joined them on stage. "What do we do now?" she asked. "I have no idea," Jimmy said. "This has never happened before." Within an hour, videos of the interview were already appearing on social media. Someone in the audience had recorded parts of it on their phone. Grace Lewis, an entertainment reporter, was one of the first to post about it. Break-in. "Melania Trump walks off Jimmy Kimmel Live after heated exchange," she wrote on Twitter. By midnight, the story was everywhere. News websites, social media, television shows. Everyone was talking about what had happened. Some people said Jimmy had been unfair to Melania. Others said she had overreacted. But everyone agreed it was one of the most dramatic moments in late-night television history. The next morning, Jimmy had to decide whether to address what happened on his show. He knew millions of people would be watching to see what he would say. Lisa Barnes came to work early, already dealing with phone calls from reporters and network executives. Everyone wanted to know how something like this could have happened. "I don't know," Lisa kept telling people. "Nobody planned for this, but the damage was already done." The interview that was supposed to be a friendly conversation had turned into a public fight, and now the whole world was watching to see what would happen next. Both Jimmy and Melania would have to live with the consequences of that terrible night for a long time to come.